horrible news late last week, the passing of the legend Kevin Randleman, the monster, former UFC heavyweight champion. If you have not seen or read Dave Meltzer's article that just was posted earlier this morning on MMAfighting.com, Monday morning, I mean, if there's one guy to write, Meltzer, you hate to say something like this because, of course, you don't want to read these things because that means that bad news has come, but there is no one better at celebrating the life of a mixed martial artist or professional wrestler than Dave Meltzer. I didn't get a chance to read it, but I heard that his article on Brian Danielson, who retired last week as a pro wrestler, was nothing short of amazing. Wrote a great article on the life and times of Kevin Randleman that was posted this morning, and I wanted to have Phil on today on the show to celebrate the life and times of Kevin Randleman. If you don't know, Phil Baroni was a major part of Team Hammerhouse a few years back. Kind of came out that it was I don't want to call it a gimmick, but it was a different kind of team. It wasn't your typical MMA team, but they were a force in the Pride days. They were a force in Japan. Him, Mark Coleman, Wes Sims, Kevin Randleman, Phil Baroni. They were a faction. They were a very important faction, and they were they caused some hell. They shook things up in Pride, and it was a ton of fun. Of course, Kevin Randleman's fight against Mirko Cro Cop, against Fedor Emelianenko, the slam, the knockout, Mauro Ranallo's call of the knockout. Kevin Randleman has just knocked out Mirko Cro Cop, one of the greatest of all time. So I really wanted to have Phil on. Kevin meant a lot to Phil Baroni, and I thought it would be apropos to have the New York Badass on to celebrate his life. So now we go to the Skype machine, and there he is, the NYBA himself, Phil Baroni. Phil, how are you?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Okay, so this is what we're doing. We're doing Skype so that we can see you and your phone, but can you turn the audio off on your computer because we're getting some feedback?
Okay, sorry, bro.
Also, is there someone who wants to come out of the shower or the bathroom in back of you? Is that
it's my wife. I didn't.
Is she? She could come out.
Help me with the computer.
Okay.
Help me with the computer.
I hope she's not hiding in the closet there or something.
That's the restroom.
Okay. If she wants to come out, she can come out. It's going to make me anxious of her.
I want you to come out. No, she don't want to come out.
Okay.
She's not. Hey, well, let me see what happens if I put my phone on speaker.
Okay.
Hear me now?
I can hear you.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's great. Okay,
Nice.
Let's do that. Well, Phil, I appreciate you coming on. I know it's not the best of times, but again, I really wanted to talk to you about Kevin's life and his amazing legacy. First, let me just ask you, I mean, how are you? This was a complete shock. He was just at the World MMA Awards last week. How are you handling it all?
Yeah, terribly. Yeah, it should have went. Could have seen the guy last time. I don't know why I didn't go, but hey, yeah, it was a shock to everybody, I think.
When's the last time you talked to him?
Man, a couple weeks ago, me and my wife and Elizabeth were supposed to get together, and it didn't happen. Then we're going to see each other at MMA Awards. I ended up, not going to the MMA Awards. So, yeah, couple months, man. Couple months.
And I know
he lives right here in Vegas too. We live on opposite sides of town. He lives in Green Valley, and I live in Summerlin. So 45 minutes away.
Okay.
Vegas is in the middle of us, the Strip.
Did you know that he was dealing with any issues, health issues, or was this completely out of the blue?
No, he's never one to complain, man. That guy's been through so much. Everybody's sort of staph infection, holes going through his body. I mean, that guy has been through so much, but he would never tell anyone. I have no idea. I think it was I think it was a shock. I don't know how this happened, to be honest.
So when
I don't think anybody.
Well, when I reached out to you about having you on the show, I mean, I knew about the Hammer House connection, but you actually, you told me via text message that this went far beyond Hammer House. Like this was a man that you. Do you want to take a break, Phil?
No. Like I remember watching him in NCAAs when I was in high school. You know, he was the best NCAA wrestler ever. You know, he took second his freshman year. Went on to win 2 NCAA titles after that. One more. Won a title, but with a broken jaw and his jaw wide shut. You know, he was always a super stud, super athlete. You know, had the best body. You know, super ups, and you know, always someone I tried to emulate. You know, in high school wrestling, I wanted to be like, you know, Kevin Randleman. You know, shoot double legs. I mean, I copied his style, inside out trip. You know, all the techniques he used, I used. And then I remember, like, the first time I met him, I heard the UFC was in town. It was before UFC 30. I'm not sure what number it was, but the UFC was in town, and I drove to it was different back then. You could find the fighters, you know. It's a lot different than it is now. It was a lot smaller. And it was in Atlantic City, and I remember driving from Long Island to Atlantic City with my workout gear. And I found out where all the fighters were training, like the warm-up room, like the first couple of days before the fight. And I camped out there. And I remember when him and Coleman first walked down to the workout room. You know, we're kind of like we would have open workouts now, but it wasn't open.
Right.
And I remember, man, I asked him, can I train with you and wrestle with you? And I remember that he was cool as hell. And Coleman was like, I remember Coleman was like, don't hurt him, don't you know? You know, I'm like, I can't hurt him. You know what I mean? And I remember he was just drilling on me double legs, single legs. That's the first time I met him. I went down to to Atlantic City and found the hotel that they were at, and I got to wrestle him. You know, he was always my the guy I looked up to. You know, as a kid.
And Phil, if you feel at any point you don't want to keep going, I totally understand. So I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I really appreciate the stories. I'm wondering.
I got so many stories. Okay, that guy's the best. But he you know, man, I remember, like, you know, I wrestled with him and I was like, hell yeah, man. I just wrestled the guy I always wanted to wrestle. You know, I think I was wrestling for Hofstra. I was still, I don't know if I was out of college or I was wrestling actually for Hofstra, you know, and he was in the UFC. So I kind of emulated the guy, you know. When I was in Hofstra wrestling, I used to do big jumps, you know, not quite as high as you jump, but pretty high, you know. And
you were just a kid, like you weren't the New York Badass. So he let some kid that he didn't know, he never knew, just come train with him.
Yep.
Wow.
I mean, that's how it was. It was just Coleman and him there.
Wow.
And they were hanging out, man. And
were you freaking out? Like how this is like getting to?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how I pulled it off. You know what I mean? But yeah, I was freaking out. You know, it was awesome. I was getting to trail my idol. You know what I mean? And I remember I tried to, like, he used to do an inside-out trip, which is kind of a slick move. I tried an inside trip up, and he like, threw me off. I was like, oh no, I know that move. You know, he was awesome.
At that point, did you want to be an MMA fighter? Or was that what changed?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay,
Of course. You know, I was watching it, you know, when I was in college. You know, I remember watching. It's crazy when I think about it. I remember watching Shamrock, Frank Shamrock beat Tito Ortiz and say he's going to retire. And I remember thinking in my head, I could beat that guy. I'm going to fight that guy some day. And that ended up happening.
Yeah.
I remember the Hammer House and being on a team, and I always wanted to be on that team. It's pretty weird the way my career and life took off. So all the guys I always emulated and wanted to be most like, I've somehow interacted with and you know, have relationships with. So it's pretty amazing when I think about it. I never really thought about it until now, actually.
Did you tell them that day, I want to be an MMA fighter? I want to be.
No, yeah, of course. Yeah.
What did they say to you? Do you remember what they said? Like, did they give you advice that stuck with you? Do you recall the conversation?
They were super cool, man. They were like, yeah, man. They told me I was tough and I was strong and I was lifting weights too, you know.
Yeah.
I was like a little version of those guys, you know. I mean, I always want to be an MMA fighter. When I was in Central Michigan college wrestling, I used to drive an hour up to Dan Severn. He lived in Michigan. Not sure where he lived, but who's an hour away. When I was supposed to be wrestling and stuff, I'd go up there and train with Dan Severn a little bit. So I always wanted to be a fighter. So I knew a little bit, but when I went to that room, and worked out with those guys. I sat there all day, every day. I guess 4 or 5 days that they were there. I remember seeing Randy Couture come down, and I talked to him, wrestle him a little bit. I remember seeing Pedro Hizzo. I remember seeing all the old guys, all the legendary guys, that I grew up watching.
So how long after do you actually become a part of Team Hammerhouse? How did that happen?
What happened with that was Coleman, Randleman moved to Vegas, and he was training at, I think, Mark Lehman. I know Mark Lehman's gym. He was training at Mark Lehman's, and that's where the Hammerhouse was learning some ground fighting, some jiu-jitsu. And Lehman actually cornered him for a fight in Japan, but Coleman was there, and Coleman came in, and I guess he had a great result. He won the fight, so Coleman came out here to train. And Coleman was staying at the Kevin was with Elizabeth, his wife, and Coleman was staying at the Palace Station. And I remember after practice one day, I said, "Hey, Coleman, you needed a ride?" So I drove him to the Palace Station. So what time are we going to training tomorrow? So I just kind of looked up to him, and you hear me? I can't see you guys.
So your Skype.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I looked up to those guys, and I just said, "Coleman, hey, you need a ride to the hotel?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "What time are we going to train tomorrow?" He told me, so I just went and picked him up. So I was basically, Coleman's big fan, and I was his chauffeur for his training camp, and Kev would come down once in a while and work out, and I would train with those guys, and I was probably one of the better wrestlers, not the best wrestler in Vegas at the time, and I asked Coleman if he wanted to corner me when I was getting ready to fight Pete Cell. I ended up getting choked out. He saw how hurt I was, and he basically got me in Pride, and when I got to Pride, I was just a member of the Hammerhouse. They took me under their wing after I lost in the UFC when I was released.
Was that the best? I mean, you've had some highs, incredible high. I mean, but just being around those two guys who were kind of like in a weird way. I didn't even know that about the story at the in the back with the open workouts. But to be a part of that team, if you will, in Japan, like you kind of were the American bad guys coming over, together, everyone's coming in. Was that the best time for you?
Yeah, when I look back, for sure, it was Hammerhouse versus the world, it was us versus the world. It was three wrestlers, you know what I mean? And, we were taking on the bad guys, Vanderlei Silva, Shogun, Ninja, all those guys. We were taking them on. Those are the bad guys. Those are the wild men from the Curitiba jungles, remember?
Yes.
Remember what's his name used to put him over? Quadro. She used to put him over. The wild men
right.
from the jungles of Curitiba, And I was a kid. I believed that shit. I was scared shit.
Well, what do you think they were going to do?
Who knows, man? Who knows? I don't. Well, we ended up fighting him, huh? I ended up fighting Vanderlei in the Shogun fight when Coleman fought Shogun. But I don't know. I didn't know what they were going to do. I really believed the press. I thought they were going to kill us.
Yeah, the brawl, right?
Yeah, we had the brawl in the ring. Yeah, Kev wasn't there for that one, but
right.
If he was, we won anyway. If he was, it would have been mayhem. But Kev was, the best. He was. I never told him, what if I could just say one thing, to him is that like he was my idol growing up. He was the best wrestler in college with the best body. He was super muscular like he always was, and he was hitting crazy double legs, and he always gave the best interview. I mean, if you see the interview with his son when he had a broken jaw. And I think it was on CBS. All these interviews, he was cutting the best promos as a college wrestler. And then I remember when I was a college wrestler, I was watching him fight in the UFC and then Pride, and in the UFC back then. And he wasn't fighting Pride yet, but he was in the UFC. And I always followed him, and I always wanted to be like the guy. He was he was the one fighter that made the biggest impression on me. You know, he talked so good, he looked so good, he was good looking, he was so good with the fans. I mean, he made everyone he met. You know, after meeting that guy, you could not be a fan of him. You know, you couldn't be a fan of him. He was just a great guy to know and be around.
And, you know, the amazing moments. I mentioned, too, the Crow Cop. And by the way, we don't see you anymore. I don't know if you still see me.
No, I don't see it. I don't know what to do. I suck at this.
It's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. But the moments were fantastic. The two that come to mind for me, the Crow Cop finish and Morrow's call. The Fedor slam was amazing. What about for you? What about for Phil Baroni? What's your favorite Kevin Randleman moment?
Oh, the Crow Cop fight. Nobody thought he was going to win that fight. And Coleman is a much better storyteller than me. But the story, you know, he's a much better story. The story of that fight was, and Coleman, I think he forgets I was there, because he tells me every time we talk, you know, about this moment was, we're in the back. And in Japan, you know, you have to, it's a lot different than it is here. I mean, you'll be fighting 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. They bring you in a bus to the arena at maybe, you know, 10:30 in the morning, 11 in the morning. So you're stuck there all day. You're stuck there in a little room, and you see all the other fighters around. It's like a big room separated by curtains. It sucks. It's way different than, you know, the UFC. And every time you fight, they bring in, they have like maybe, say there's 3 guys there, they'll have like 6 bento boxes for like lunch and dinner. And I remember Kevin Randleman and Coleman and Elizabeth would walk into the room, and Kev was, you know, like I was, always stressed out before a fight. And he's like, I remember he's like, you know how he acts? These bento boxes, they don't get it. What the fuck? I need some food. I need some food. I ain't eating this shit. What is this? Every time we come, they give us 6 bento boxes, and we leave. There's 6 bento boxes. So he's going crazy. You know, he's down and, you know, and all the Japanese are running in. Mr. Kevin, what's the matter? What's the matter? You know, calm down, please. Like, I'm going out, and I'm getting some food. And I remember, no, Mr. Kevin, you can't go. No, please. Like, you know, he was ready to walk out. And Elizabeth was there. And Elizabeth goes, Kevin, calm down. Everybody calm down. You know, it was a melee. You can't imagine in Japan. Anyway.
Oh, did we lose Phil? I was loving that story. Okay, we'll call him right back. And I really appreciate Phil Baroni for coming on. Obviously, as you can tell, it's still all very fresh. And Randleman, I didn't know about the story of Mark Coleman and Randleman just taking some kid. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine if, you know, Cain Velasquez is preparing for a fight and some kid goes like, hey, can I train with you guys? And they would just, that was the Wild West back then. Phil, are you back?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Where did I leave off?
Well, you were talking. You said his wife was saying, "Okay, we're gonna go." You know, trying to.
Yeah, Kevin's like, "I'm getting out of here. I'm getting some fucking food." and Elizabeth was like, "Calm down, Kevin." And she ended up going, you know, going out. You know, in Tokyo, I think we were at the Satayama Super Arena. There's not really around there. She ended up coming back with some fried chicken. Like Kentucky Fried Chicken, they have that there. And I remember just seeing Kevin with a drumstick eating like, don't they get it? This is what I need, some food. So I remember that, like Elizabeth saved the day. That's like one of my, you know, memories, one of my craziest stories. And I just remember everybody acting crazy, and then her going out and getting the food. And I just remember how happy he was just to tear open the box. You know, it comes in like a paper box, just tearing it open, just grabbed out a chicken leg, just started eating it. It was awesome.
Have you talked to Mark since the news came?
Yeah.
How is he doing?
Yeah. Oh, he's as bad as me. The shock, and I know he said Dana White called him. I think he told you. I mean, it's horrible, man. The shock. I mean, as close as I was, and as much as I emulated him, that was Kevin's college wrestling coach.
Mm-hmm.
He tells me the story like he remembers like after he had his first fight, Coleman did. He remembers calling Kev up, and he's like, "All right, Kev, I got something for us, man. You're not going to believe this, but this is what we're going to do. We got 30 days. Come down here to Ohio. We're going to train, and we're going to go to Brazil." And he went down to Brazil with no real MMA training, just a wrestler that could throw bombs, and ended up winning a 3-man tournament that night down in Brazil. Basically, not much training, just wrestling and street fighting techniques.
Amazing. What a different time it was back then. And you kind of you were left to reflect on that, and how, like I called it, the Wild West, but it's amazing how the way the sport was, how it was so small, opened the door for someone like you to be able to train with idols of yours. I don't think that can actually happen today because of where the sport is at, but that's a beautiful thing. I know he had four kids, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned his wife, who has been with him for so long. Have you talked to her?
A little bit. A little bit. Mostly through text.
Okay.
But it's got to be. They were so close. They didn't even want to see like a match made in heaven. It was definitely those two.
Right. Well, Phil, again,
that's the saddest thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That was like that's the hardest thing. And their little son saying, he's a baby. He's like 4 foot tall right now. How old is he? 3 years old. He's going to be a monster, just like his dad.
The crazy thing about a tragedy like this happens, you see the outpouring. I don't know if you saw it, if you were on social media much, but it was like amazing how every range of active MMA fighter, from the older ones to the newer ones to ones that you wouldn't even think had any sort of connection or affinity for everyone came out with their own story, their own tribute, their own mention. Horrible, but you never want to see it. It was just nice to see the respect that he was given from all corners.
I sat home all day and I couldn't go out, and I just watched social media all day and Facebook and everything else. Yeah, I mean, everybody reached out, to the guy. They throw the term legend around loosely these days, but that guy was a legend. I mean, him, Coleman, Shamrock, Gracie, those guys are the real legends.
Legend.
Those are the real legends in the sport.
And you can. Sorry, go ahead.
He has a GoFundMe too.
Right. And I will plug that for his family, right?
Yes, for his son and stuff.
Yes, actually, Boss Rutan tweeted it recently, earlier today. It's GoFundMe.com/324NM as in Mary JSC. But if you just type in his name, it will come up. Kevin Randleman Memorial Fund. If you just go to the GoFundMe website, that will come up right away if you just type in Kevin Randleman Memorial Fund. Phil,
the thing is that's sad too. Like what a legend like that, if he was around now, how much money would he have made?
Sure.
He wouldn't even need this. And I remember talking to you a long time ago, and we were talking about you needed that one guy, did that one interview, kind of like a Holocaust of Muhammad Ali type guy. Well, Kev would have been that guy. If Kev was coming up now, Conor McGregor's great, but Kev was the best. He cut the best promos ever. He was really good. That would have been the guy. That's one thing I thought about when he actually been on the show. Like we talked about who would be that guy for you.
Yeah.
Make those great interviews. It would have been Kevin for sure.
Yeah, I only had a chance to interview him twice. I played one of them before his Strikeforce fight, and then after the Strikeforce fight. Michael Chandler actually reminded me that last year at the MMA Awards, Chandler and Randleman were the ones who gave out the Journalist of the Year award, and I went back to look at the clip, and I remember him just being so nice and gave me a big hug, and so I totally forgot about that, but happy that I was able to have those couple moments with him. I really appreciate you coming on. Phil, did you want to say something? Sorry, go ahead.
No, he's a super nice guy. I mean, if you meet the guy once, and the next time you see him, he's like your best friend. And
yeah,
it's almost to a fault because, like, when we make plans, and one of us would probably me, I wouldn't go, whatever. You don't feel bad, 'cause, the next time you see him, it's going to be like you saw each other yesterday. It's not like there's no awkward feeling, or there's no, like, I haven't seen the guy in a while. What's going to be like? It's just like you were just with him yesterday, or you know what I mean? He always made you feel comfortable. He always made the fans and everybody just feel, which is just good.
And I was going to add, you called him a legend. I agree with that. But the word pioneer isn't used that often. Definitely applies to Kevin Randleman, a true pioneer of this sport. Without guys like him, we are not sitting here talking about mixed martial arts. So, again, Phil, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hang in there, my man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I appreciate you coming on and celebrating his life, talking a little bit about him. I know we could talk for 2 hours, more, 3, 4, 5 hours about what he has done for this sport. But it was an honor to have you on talk. And finally, before I go, what's the latest with you, Phil? Where are we at? What are you up to these days?
I don't know. Who knows, man?
Okay.
I don't want to talk about me now. All right, man. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. I hope I gave a couple good stories about
Tremendous. Thank you. It was an honor. Thank you, Phil. Hang in there.
Thank you.
All right, there he is, the New York Badass, Phil Baroni. Sharing some memories, as I said, and I appreciate him coming on. It's still very fresh. I hope that he is celebrated, continues to be celebrated. Who knows? Put him in that Hall of Fame. I know the UFC Hall of Fame is a controversial, polarizing one, but Kevin Randleman, a former champ, and a man who inspired many and had some amazing moments, certainly deserves to be in that Hall of Fame. Again, our hearts go out to his family. And if you want to contribute to that GoFundMe account, I actually just retweeted it from Boss Ruden's account, so you can check it out there.